Three, two, one. Welcome back to the show. We're going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the Cardinals, who they should pick with the number one overall draft pick. We're going to go through my first top 10 picks for this year's upcoming draft. We're going to talk about the Browns. We're going to talk about free agency, who's winners and losers of free agency. We're going to talk about the Jaguars, and we're going to talk about the Patriots. So, we'll just get this started. So, Cardinals. The Cardinals finished last year in the NFC West. They finished 3-13. With the 19th overall defense and the 32nd overall offense. So not a very hot start. Throughout that season, they drafted last year. They drafted with the 10th overall pick. They drafted Josh Rosen out of UCLA. And he had a sneaky good season. He was 217 for 393. A 66.7 QBR, 2,280 or 78 yards, 11 touchdowns, and 14 interceptions. And he played 14 games, which, it's a sneaky good season, but it was also very filled with a lot of offensive line issues. They had a lot of offensive line. Their wide receiver core wasn't, Larry Fitzgerald wasn't where he was, in 2015 when they made it to the NFC Championship against Green Bay. He's definitely regressed. You can see that his age is getting to him. And so, I feel as though the Cardinals have the first overall pick in the NFL draft. And so with that first overall pick, I do believe that they've interviewed with Kyler Murray. And I know that their head coach is a huge fan of Kyler Murray. He worked with him a little bit when he was the Texas Tech head coach. He kind of worked with him in high school when he was in high school with his high school team. And I know he's a huge fan. He says he's the most athletic quarterback he's ever seen come into the NFL draft. But this is the thing. People have been speculating, what's going to happen to Josh Rosen? Where's he going to go? Are they going to trade him? Are they going to keep him and, draft Kyler Murray and just have a 2-quarterback system for some odd reason? And honestly, I think that would be a stupid decision by the Cardinals to pick Kyler Murray. Number one is they're giving up too early on Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen, he's had 1 year NFL experience, and he hasn't been able to really prove himself behind that terrible offensive line and terrible offense in general that they had. So I don't think that they should pick Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray, don't get me wrong, is for sure hands down the best quarterback in the draft. You watch film on him, he has a certain way he throws the ball, and how he can settle in the pocket. And it's just he's very, very skilled and very talented. I know people compare him to Russell Wilson, but I don't even think that does justice. He is a very phenomenal quarterback. And I don't think that the Cardinals should give up on Josh Rosen so quickly after just 1 year of him having the 32nd overall worst offense in the league. You can't give him that time of that small time period in that time to prove himself as an elite quarterback, especially coming in as a rookie. So I honestly think that they should not pick Kyler Murray, but knowing them, they'll pick Kyler Murray. And after they pick Kyler Murray, they'll go throughout free agency, and they've already kind of done this. Like they traded with the Steelers Marcus Gilbert for in exchange for a 2019 6th round and 7th round pick. They gave that to the Steelers for Marcus Gilbert, an offensive tackle. They picked up Jordan Hicks, middle linebacker. He was on the Eagles for 4 years, $36 million, $20 million guaranteed. They picked up quarterback Brett Hundley, 1 year deal worth $2 million. A 1 year deal with Terrell Suggs, a very nice, good locker room linebacker to have in there. A guard, J.R. Sweezy, he used to play on the Seahawks. To a 2 year deal, and then Kevin White, a former first round pick. Not a lot of details on that, but a former first round pick out of West Virginia, and he had glimpses in Chicago of what he could be. And I think that would be really nice for Josh Rosen to come in there and have more targets to go through, instead of just having to think, oh, I have, Larry Fitzgerald and J.J. Nelson. And I think J.J. Nelson got released this year too. So it's really nice. They're coming in and they realize that they have certain needs that need to be matched. And I think that so far it was a good pick for them to pick up Marcus Gilbert and J.R. Sweezy. I think that's a good start. And they still have Mike Upati, who he's been injured a lot lately, but he's still a very, very good offensive guard. And I think that they're on the right track to building an offense, and I think that with that first overall pick, in my opinion, they should take an offensive player. I was thinking about the kid, either like Jawan Taylor out of the Florida Gators. He's a very, very, very good tackle, which would nice outside pressure. It would be very nice to have them outside pressure, not to be as much. And I've seen Jawan Taylor, a little bit of his play style, and he doesn't miss blocks very often. And so I think that would be a very good fit for Rosen. Rosen just needs. I've watched quite a bit of film on him lately. He's a little bit slower reading a defense. And his throws are quite late, like when a hitch, I think of when he played the Broncos, one of his pick sixes was the hitch came back and he threw the hitch, but it was like way, way late. And he has troubles reading a defense, which obviously being a rookie in the NFL, you're going to have, those times where it's going to be hard to read a defense. And I think that you got to give Josh Rosen like another year. But if they're going to go the route of picking Kyler Murray and getting rid of Rosen, giving up on him, I would love to see Josh Rosen either go to the Giants or the Patriots. The reason why the Giants is Eli Manning's 38, not getting any younger. And he is going to need a person for the future. And I know that they have Saquon Barkley. They have the 6th overall pick. And without Odell Beckham, they have Golden Tate, which again, not a very good, replacement, I would say, to Odell Beckham Jr. But they're going to need a successor to Eli Manning. And if the Patriots picked up Josh Rosen, which I'll get into a little bit later, on what I think the Patriots should be doing for a person to back up Tom Brady, is I feel as though he would be very, very good in a system offense like the Patriots. So I do feel as though like the Patriots be a good fit for Josh Rosen. So yeah. So the Cardinals, I know they're probably going to pick Kyler Murray first overall. Probably hands down, they'll pick Kyler Murray and then they'll move on and see how he does in their offense. I don't think he's a good fit for their offense at all. They really like to run heavy with David Johnson, which who was last year was not at his 2017-ish peak, before he got injured. He was not. He showed flashes here and there, but was not the David Johnson that was very good a couple years ago. So yeah, I think that they'll move on from Josh Rosen. They'll pick Kyler Murray. They'll go a year and see how this new head coach with Kyler Murray in the offense goes. And so yeah. Next, we're gonna go through my top 10, like the top 10 picks of the NFL 2019 draft. So obviously, as we were just saying, number 1 overall pick, the Cardinals select Kyler Murray out of Oklahoma. Again, I don't think it's a good fit whatsoever, but I guess we'll just see how they go together for an offensive wise. Number 2 overall pick with the 49ers is Nick Bosa, the edge rusher out of Ohio, the Joey Bosa's brother. Very, very talented, and he's just phenomenal. He racked up. Gotta find it. He had 87 solo tackles, 31 assisted tackles. He had 29 tackles for a loss, 17.5 sacks, 2 pass deflections, 2 forced fumbles, and 1 touchdown. Very good stats for an edge rusher coming out of Ohio who, Ohio produces very good offensive styled players. I mean, only one that I can really think of is I think it's DJ Ward. Yeah, DJ Ward he was a corner. He's on the Browns now. I feel like he really could shine in the 49ers, who desperately need a nice edge rusher to, get that offense that's, I feel as though overhyped a bit, get them going and, get that offense out on the field, get Garoppolo out there with, Jerick McKinnon, and, let them ball out. So with the 3rd overall pick, the Jets take Quinton Nelson Williams, defensive lineman out of Alabama. This kid is amazing. This kid he's very good at pass rushing, and he's very good at stopping the run. If you watched in, any of their games, any team has a hard time against that Alabama defense. They can't really run. They have to go through the pass attack. And I think of the Oklahoma and Alabama game. Kyler Murray is known to be he's a pass first guy. He always keeps his eyes down the field and squares his shoulders the entire time. But there were times when he was like, okay, I want to run, but there was always somebody in his face. And Quinton Nelson for the Jets would be a phenomenal pick for them to put in that defensive line that's struggled since the 2013 NFL draft when they picked up what is his name? He's I can't remember his name, but he was a stud coming out of college. Their first overall or their first round pick. And he's been slowly declining, but I feel as though when they picked up CJ Mosley, and they've started building on that defense and starting to also try to complement Sam Darnold with the offensive line that they're trying to build, I feel as though that would be a great pick for the Jets. So the next pick, the 5th or the 3rd or 4th pick is Josh Allen out of Kentucky State going to the Raiders. This one is really an obvious pick. They lost Khalil Mack. They need an edge rusher. They haven't picked one up in free agency. I think that he would be a very, very good fit in that Raiders defense. And with the way the Raiders are going, I give them, this year they're going to keep on rebuilding, but I give them this year and maybe next, and they'll be a Super Bowl contending team. They will be great. I think John Gruden is doing a phenomenal job over there in Oakland. So number 5, the 5th overall pick is the Bucks. They pick Montez Sweat, defensive lineman out of Mississippi. This kid, watching his combine, just absolutely makes you just, wow, how is this guy not further up before on the depth chart for draft picks? He was phenomenal he had a phenomenal combine. And which I think he ran the fastest 40-yard dash out of all defensive linemen. And he really did like set a good tone for himself. And I think with the Bucks, how they've struggled, they've started complementing more with their defensive line and defense, that front seven, with Alexander, Levante David, and like I can't think of much other. And they picked Tuan Vio last year or something like that. They picked him up last year in the draft, and he did okay. Not as good as people were like, oh, this guy is going to be phenomenally great. He'll be just one of the best. And he had a mediocre season, like 2 sacks and a couple tackles, nothing, major, but this would really help them get a boost on that defensive line that they desperately need. So number 6, I have the Giants picking Jawan Taylor, offensive tackle from the Florida Gators. Again, like I said, phenomenal tackle. He doesn't miss his blocks. He rarely misses his blocks. And I know a lot of people think that Greg Little is a better offensive tackle than Jawan Taylor. But Jawan Taylor really, in my opinion, sets a tone more than Greg Little. Again, I didn't watch a lot of Florida stuff, but when I looked back at it and I saw like what he could do, he was very good in the passing game. He set his blocks for his quarterback. So that's who I think the Giants should pick up, especially how Eli Manning, he could win games still. He's still a good quarterback, and I'll probably go into this next week what I think about the Giants. I think they're just missing an offensive line, and they could still make a playoff push with Eli Manning. He's 38. He doesn't have that much time left in him, but he can still play football. You can still win games with a veteran quarterback like Eli Manning. Number 7, the Jags. They pick Greg Little, offensive tackle out of Ole Miss. This is the thing with Greg Little is he's not as good as Jawan Taylor. Jawan Taylor had a little bit more like strength to him, and especially in the passing game, he really set nice outside blocks. And Greg Little, I feel as though he was good too, but again, Ole Miss kind of struggled with a lot of things. Their quarterback was not the best. He had glimpses of what he could really do. He could be a phenomenally good quarterback. But he also showed how he was just terrible. Missed throws, overthrowing, underthrowing, missed reads, not reading the defense right. And it was hard, and it made Greg Little look a little bit less, because I think he just had a little bit less like oomph, because the Florida Gators have always been kind of okay. They've had their glimpses of goodness, and I think this year they did pretty well. But Ole Miss, they have DK Metcalf. What are you guys going to do? Just throw the ball deep. That's all you have to do. So I think that the Jags should pick him, because their offensive line, they just picked up Nick Foles, which I think is a phenomenally good pick for the Jags. I think they'll win a lot of games with him and that still top tier defense. So yeah, I think that the Jags will pick Greg Little. Number 8, the Lions. Cornerback Greedy Williams out of LSU. This is what I think is going to be one of the best lockdown corners that will come into the NFL. I think he will come, if he goes to the Lions, he'll match Darius Slay. He's fast, and he can play man-to-man press, and he won't get beat deep. This kid is a phenomenal athlete, and the Lions desperately need corners. Next to, they desperately need an offensive line. They finally found a rushing attack. They found the successor to Calvin Johnson in what is his name? Jeff Galladay. Yeah, Galladay. He's they found that, and they still have Matthew Stafford for like 3 more years. They're gonna have to really get that defense going. That front 7, they did lose Ezekiel Ansah, which is a huge hit for them. That was a big hit. But I think that would really help the the Lions get back to a playoff like contention team. Number 9, the Buffalo Bills. Byron Murphy, Washington State. This kid is a very good lockdown corner. He ran a lot with Washington, like just very good man-to-man coverage, very good zone coverage player too. And I don't think he's quite Greedy Williams, like top tier as Greedy Williams will be in the NFL, but I think he will do good. And number 10, the Denver Broncos select Dwayne Haskins, quarterback out of Ohio. Now, I know a lot of people would be like, wait a second, isn't Dwayne Haskins going to probably be going to like the Giants? And the Giants say they have no time with him. That's not in their plans. I know the Broncos did meet with Dwayne Haskins and Drew Lock. And I feel as though Dwayne Haskins, his last year, he threw for 50 touchdowns. He had a phenomenal last year. And I think that he would really, since we brought in Joe Flacco, I think it would be good for him to sit back a year or two, learn from a Super Bowl MVP, and just sit back and really try to take in, because there are a lot of things I watched on Dwayne Haskins. When he's under pressure, he does very well, but he still makes those throws that you're kind of like, okay, why did you make that throw? But when he has a clean pocket and he has all the time in the world, this kid is like for sure the best thrower in the draft. And I know I said Kyler Murray is like the best overall quarterback, which he is. He still has a phenomenal arm, can throw it, but Dwayne Haskins is like just a tad bit less than of an arm than Josh Allen did last year in the draft. And Dwayne Haskins has such better accuracy than Josh Allen too. So I feel like if you give him a couple years, sit behind Joe Flacco, really learn the NFL, I think that he could do really, really well. So on to our next thing. We're going to talk about the Cleveland Browns, which I've had multiple people talk to me and be like, yo, do the Cleveland Browns. So last year in the AFC North, the Browns finished third in their division. They finished 7-8-1. They tied with the Steelers. Barely missed the playoffs by like a couple games. Now, obviously, halfway through the season, they switched head coaches on them. They fired Hugh Jackson. They got rid of him. And they started doing really well. Nick Chubb started to go off. Baker Mayfield showed what he was like in Oklahoma. And I feel as though that will be a really, really fun team to watch this year. They, as everybody probably knows, the Browns, they got Odell Beckham Jr., they traded a first rounder, the 17th overall pick, a third rounder, the 95th overall pick, and their strong safety, Jabril Peppers, which I think I'll talk about in a second, is a bad move. They also, in free agency, they picked up Olivia Vernon, or they traded Olivia Vernon from the Giants again to the Browns. And again, another weird move, getting rid of Kevin Zeitler or Zittler. I butchered his last name. Sorry about that. But they really did give him, I think that's a better position. They desperately need Olivia Vernon, a nice outside rusher, but he can also drop back and be a left outside linebacker. And they desperately need linebackers in that front seven. They picked up Sheldon Richardson, signed him on a 3-year deal, $36 million, and then offensive tackle Greg Robinson re-signed him for $9 million. I think that is a very, very good pickup by the Browns. They desperately needed somebody in that front seven, and I think that those two right there, Sheldon Richardson and Olivia Vernon, will help tremendously. I don't know. So people, I've gotten asked what they think the Browns will do. Do you think they'll make the playoffs, miss the playoffs, make AFC Championship, win Super Bowl, like all these other things? And I know I've said myself they're winning the Super Bowl, but on an actual like football talk real note, I believe even though how scary that offense is, I think that they'll become a 2015 Panthers. They will go unbelievably good through the season. I'm going 13-3. Their best record in years, probably since 2002, which was the last time that they made the playoffs. They lost to the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I think that they'll go 13-3. They'll make it throughout the playoffs. They'll go all the way to the AFC Championship, where they'll probably face Brady and the Patriots. And I think that will be their hardest opponent. And I think that we'll get a glimpse of what Mayfield can be in that offense. But I think that defense, I don't think they're going to be able to stop Tom Brady. I think the defense is going to hold them back. I think they'll make a good run this year. 13-3 is a very, very good run. But I don't think that they have quite a few opponents like they played like the Broncos and the Giants and stuff like that. Like they don't have a hard schedule. And I think that they'll probably make it pretty far in the playoffs, divisional round or the championship. And I think they'll lose to the Patriots or the Chargers or something like that, just because the Patriots and the Chargers have a well-rounded team. They don't have, one star player or two that just carries them. By the Patriots, I guess it's Tom Brady, and Bill Belichick is the other one. But I think that they'll do fine. I think that they'll have a phenomenal regular season. They won't make it Super Bowl at all. They will, Baker Mayfield had a very good season, very good rookie season. He missed out the first 3 games, I believe. But even at that, he was, 310 to 486. He had 3,725 yards, 27 touchdowns, which was a rookie high, the highest career rookie touchdown, passes Russell Wilson. And then 14 interceptions. I think that's a very good rookie season for a kid that a lot of people were like, this kid's not going to do well in Cleveland. That the attitude and the way he plays just doesn't fit Cleveland style. He's a very upbeat person, and they compared him to Johnny Manziel, and I think that was a very unfair comparison. And so I think Baker Mayfield will do phenomenal next year with somebody like Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry. Which in that case, they both did play on the same team last year. They both had, they both played on the same team in college, OBJ and Jarvis Landry. OBJ, in his career, he's been in the league 5 years, 390 receptions, 5,476 yards, which is the fastest anybody has ever gotten to 5,000 career yards. That surpasses Jerry Rice. He's very good, and his 44 career touchdowns, which that is very good. And I know he's been kind of having an injury in his ankle and his foot. So I think that he'll do really well. And I know a lot of people were like, "What about his attitude problems?" I looked at an interview when Baker Mayfield was being interviewed, and you think about Baker Mayfield is going to set the tone in Cleveland, and with he said that, he's like, I don't care about their attitude. What I want is, I just want us to have fun, win games. And, and I think Odell Beckham Jr. needed that change of scenery. I think Cleveland, with the way that they're starting to more do stuff over there, how it's more upbeat and stuff, and not just the most terrible team in the NFL. I feel as though he will thrive there. Especially with somebody like his buddy Jarvis Landry, who he was roommates with in college, and I think that they'll do really well. And I know last year they had the 13th overall offense and the 29th overall defense, which again, I said that's the only thing that's going to be holding them down is their defense. Their defense will do just they'll be mediocre at best. I think they might finish in the top 20 if they're lucky. So I think that is my opinion on the Browns. And I feel like they will do, just fine. They'll make it. But yeah, so let's talk about some free agency. We'll talk about more of the big things that have kind of happened. I'm not going to go into great detail about it. I'll go into my winning team and my losing team for the free agency. And so, biggest thing is Odell Beckham Jr. being traded to the Browns. Nobody saw that coming at all, especially to the Browns. Antonio Brown, and you look at this is the thing that a lot of people I've seen are like, okay, I figure Antonio Brown, other than being weird in the locker room, he's had his pity in the locker room. I think that the Steelers got robbed of Antonio Brown. You look at Odell Beckham Jr. and Antonio Brown. Odell Beckham Jr. was traded for a first, a third, and their star safety just to get one Odell Beckham Jr. Then the Steelers got a third and a fifth round pick for, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in the league. I think that is a massive steal for the Raiders. And I give kudos to John Gruden that entire way. That is all him. I'm shocked that the Raiders picked him up just because it seems that they're trying to go away from their veteran players and they're just trying to stack their team on new players that will, get them more in the future. Like will get them places like later. And I think in the rebuilding mode, I don't think Antonio Brown really fits in there that well. But it's a good thing. But Clay Matthews was signed by the Rams. Tyrann Mathieu, a Chief, which I think is a phenomenal. He said that he doesn't care about the money. He just wants to win a ring, which I think the Chiefs will do in this year or next year. They're like my favorites for winning a Super Bowl in the next 2 years. So, I am trying to think of who else. Eric Berry has not been signed yet, which surprises me that they got rid of Eric Berry, the Chiefs. I was like, that's weird. Eric Weddle to the Rams. That was another weird one. Broncos and with Joe Flacco, that one I don't like too much. Unless it becomes like a Peyton Manning scenario where he just kind of all of a sudden just goes ham in his last, little bit. I think that he'll do fine. Broncos did pick up 2 very good corners, and Kareem Jackson and that Callahan guy off the Bears. But I do think that the Broncos will do just fine. They'll miss the playoffs again. And just because the Chargers and the Chiefs are in their division. So my winner for free agency is gotta be the Jets. The Jets had a phenomenal free agency. They picked up CJ Mosley, and then they picked up a bunch of offensive weapons for like James Crowder. And I forgot to write them down, but like they had a very, very, very good free agency. And I think CJ Mosley, you put that person, CJ Mosley, on that defense just became a whole nother tier. And they already had a very, decent linebacker core. So I think that's really going to help them. But losers, I think it's got to be the Steelers. Steelers have lost a lot this offseason. And I think they picked up maybe like Dante Moncrief and another corner that I don't even remember his name. They've had a terrible offseason so far, especially losing Antonio Brown and Marcus Gilbert. I feel as though they're going to have they have Ben Roethlisberger for 1 to 2 more years. Last year, somehow he pulled off 5,000 yards. I don't see him doing over 3,500 this year. He is old. He's regressing. He's on a terrible team now. He's not. Juju Smith-Schuster is not going to be at that top tier that he was last year because now he's going to be the Antonio Brown. They're going to double cover him. They're gonna spot on him, and they don't have a person that can really double team that. I see them picking up not Dante Moncrief, DK Metcalf in the draft if he falls that far. So I think they lost in free agency. But let's talk about the Jags. So the Jags, they had a pretty good offseason so far. They haven't lost a lot. They lost Blake Bortles. Oh no, God forbid. But they picked up Nick Foles, which a lot of people are like, okay, this could be the thing that they need. And I agree. I think that they've needed a quarterback. They were one good quarterback away from being that Super Bowl caliber team that they lost to in the barely lost to the Patriots in back in just a couple years ago. They still have Jalen Ramsey. They still have AJ Boye, Tashawn Gibson. They still have I hate saying his last name. I can't even say the last name. And I think they still have Calais Campbell. Like, they have the defense still, that top tier defense. I mean, they had the 4th overall defense last year, and they have the 27th overall offense. And that 27th overall offense was due to Blake Bortles not playing at a top tier quarterback like they hoped he would. And I think that that's fair. I think that they took a chance on him in the draft. They picked him up in the 1st round, which I thought was ridiculous coming out of UCF. I thought, okay. And then he showed flashes where he was great. But he had like 27 career wins to like 48 career losses. And I think that's you have one good season, and if you can't get back to that level, I think that's you should be kicked off the team. And I think Nick Foles will come in there, and they'll probably draft a quarterback in Nick Foles' 2nd or 3rd year into his contract. And out of his 4 years, worth like $88 million. And I think that Nick Foles will go in there, and I think he'll carry him to the playoffs. I think that they will do great this year. I think that they'll make it to the playoffs, and I think that they can make it just like the Browns. They can make it divisional or AFC championship. Super Bowl's stretching it. All those Brady Foles jokes aside, Nick Foles is shown that he's a very good in the moment quarterback. But when it comes to regular season, he does not shine as much. In the playoffs, he's 11-4, I think, 12-4 or something like that, and which is a very good, backup quarterback rating. And this is the first time since he was drafted that I think Nick Foles will have his time to shine. He hasn't been a starting quarterback since like 3 years into his rookie deal. Like, those first 3 years, when he carried again, he brought the Philadelphia Eagles to the playoffs, and they went far in the playoffs when he started. And then they declined with him. He kind of declined. He went to the Rams, was a free agent, went to the Chiefs, and like that brief extent, like nobody wanted him because they thought he was a bust. The Philadelphia Eagles picked him back up, Super Bowl MVP. You got to give him credit for what he's done as a backup quarterback. He is a backup quarterback first. He is not, the guy that is going to really go in there and have them win. They're not gonna. It's not gonna be a pretty season. They're gonna win 11 games. They'll lose 5, maybe even tie 1, and they'll barely scrape by as a wild card team because the Colts are going to rock next year. But I mean, they finished 5-11 last year. And the Colts were just a phenomenal team. They have the Texans in that division. That is a hard division to beat in right now. And especially with the way that Andrew Luck played last year as the comeback player of the year, throwing 39 touchdowns just like that, like he never had shoulder problems. And then the Texans, Deshaun Watson is just Deshaun Watson, and DeAndre Hopkins is DeAndre Hopkins. They have a top-tier defense, the Texans, and it's going to be hard for them. They're going to have to work their asses off to get anywhere close to a couple years ago when the Texans and the Colts weren't good. They scraped by that year, but they still have a top-tier defense. They are in the top 5 defenses still. And I think the Jags need to be more of a conversation of, okay, if they make the playoffs, they are a Super Bowl contender if their defense stays playing the way that they're supposed to be playing. So I think that the Jags will do very well. So like I believe that they'll do very well. So now on to the final topic of today's show. It's going to be the Patriots. What I think that they'll do with a 42 in August, a 42-year-old Tom Brady coming off of their 6th Super Bowl championship. Coming from a personal Broncos fan, and a football fan in general. It sucks to see somebody every year, go in and win a Super Bowl, and it's just over and over again. I think this year, the Patriots, they have 10 picks in the draft, maybe 9 now since the Bennett trade, but they still have like 9 or 10 picks in the NFL draft, and I think that they will do. They'll do it again. They will make it all the way to the AFC Championship, and will lose or win depending on who they play against. If they play against like the Jags, or if they play against like the Browns or somehow, some way in that category, they'll make it to another Super Bowl. But I think this year needs to be, if they win a Super Bowl, it will be Tom Brady's final year. I don't care if he says he's playing till he's 45. I think that he'll wanna go on top. He'll beat Michael Jordan in rings. What is he going to be playing for? He'll probably beat all passing records this year. There's nothing he's gonna work towards anymore. He's not gonna he's the greatest. So I think with how this is, and Bill Belichick, I mean, they're a system team. There is no such thing as one player being so good for so long if you're not in a system team. Bill Belichick has been a coach, just not a head coach, just a coach, since 1975 when he was a defensive coordinator for the Giants. He's a 9-time Super Bowl champion. He knows a thing or two about football. I've been looking at lately, and a very sleeper quarterback that I feel a lot of teams are going to pass up on is Will Grier, the quarterback out of West Virginia. This kid, looking at him, a lot of people, the reason why he's fell down on draft charts is his arm strength. He doesn't have quite as much oomph on the ball as like a Kyler Murray or a Drew Lock or a Dwayne Haskins has. So he'll fall second or third round. And the Patriots are the best at drafting, hands down. And it does. Who is Julian Edelman? Like a quarterback. They transferred a quarterback into a wide receiver into a Super Bowl MVP. And they need Tom Brady has 1 or 2 years left. One or 2 years. Last year, he showed glimpses that he's getting old. And he showed glimpses that he doesn't age. But I think if they took their 24th overall pick in the second round and they drafted Will Grier and they sat him down this year and let him sit behind Tom Brady, let him learn the game of football, really learn. He doesn't use his hips as much. He relies all on his arm. He doesn't use his hips that much. He doesn't have a lot of footwork that gets that ball to that placement, which was like Tom Brady when he came into the NFL. I think that if you sit him behind Tom Brady and you put him in that system, he will thrive. And I mean, he played 28 games. And for 2 different colleges, the Florida Gators for 6 games, and then 22 games with West Virginia. I mean, he had a 65.7 completion percentage, 8,556 yards, 81 touchdowns, 23 interceptions, and a 165.2 QBR. He was a good quarterback in college. And I think that if he went to the Patriots, he would fit perfectly into their scheme, their system. And I think that the Patriots, they need to really think about who they're going to draft this year and not just who's good, because they're going to have to realize Bill Belichick's going to leave soon. He's got like a couple of years left to where he's going to coach. I mean, he has 9 Super Bowls. Why would you want to put yourself there? Why would you do that? Why would you want to just keep on going? And I think that he'll coach the kid that comes up behind Brady, give him, the heads up, hey, we're gone. So you're gonna have to carry this team and keep this legacy, this dynasty that's been going on for 2 decades going. And I think that Will Grier could be that guy. Or another one, like I was saying earlier, Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen would be a phenomenal fit for that system that they have as the Patriots. And the Patriots, I mean, Josh Rosen, again, like I told earlier in this, he was a very, very, sneaky, good, bad season. He showed glimpses of what he can really be, but he showed what he is as a quarterback. But again, all it takes is one team, one year of learning how to read an NFL defense, how to really time his throws better to be a mediocre to good quarterback in this league, and the Patriots could get him there. So I'm ending the stream there. Thank you all for whoever came out. Next week, I'll probably be doing it again on Saturday around noonish again. I want to say we'll probably talk about the Giants. We'll talk a little bit about the Raiders. And we'll see any breaking news that came out. We might talk about March Madness a little bit, about what's going on. Yeah. So, and if you guys have any thoughts or opinions or topics you guys want to put in there, put them in the comment section below and just, tell me some things that you guys want to hear. So, yeah, thank you all for coming out and have a great Saturday.